You had a question?
Yeah, is there a website that talks about native plants?
Millions.
So if we wanted to...
Tons of them.
Which one would you direct us to? Very newbie.
So I will direct you towards some of the conservation organizations that are active in the area. Let's see, Open Lands is one. I'm sure there's something in theirs. I know that
the University of Illinois has some cool resources as well.
Yep.
I mean,
the Conservation Foundation is another one. They've actually done a lot of work in other municipalities out in the suburbs with green infrastructure.
I would say one thing you want to make sure, because obviously Google's our friend, you want to make sure you get something from Illinois or Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So that you're not reading saying like, oh, well, this is native. Yeah, it's native to New York.
Yeah. So, and another thing I wanted to kind of mention with this is like if you're involved with Bell and you're involved with Earth Guardians at all, I'm often out here with kids and we're working on things. One of the things that we have to do in the garden now that it's in its just finishing our fourth growing season, one of the things we do in the spring is like, oh, we have too much of this one plant that's really aggressive. We need to weed these out. And so we're constantly like digging stuff out. In the last year or so, the last couple of years, we've kind of moved it over to the north bed, kind of north of the steps out here. It's got like a wooden thing around it with some wooden posts. We've kind of, okay, let's dig these out of here and put them over in this new spot. So what happens with time though is like, hey, as we're pulling those out, we will sometimes put them in pots and then we'll give them away like at certain nights. But if there are people that are coming and helping us, like, my goodness, please take some home. I often do that with the things that I've weeded out of my garden is I'll bring them to Bell and put them, it might be something, certain plants are more aggressive than others, even though they're native, they can be kind of aggressive. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to plant these out along the fence where they're going to get beat up a little bit more, but that's okay because they're pretty aggressive. So
I just want to add, since you helped me do this in my yard, is that now coming up to winter is the perfect time to put down the cardboard and the mulch.
Yeah, like
so
right, yeah.
I first did like the first part of the yard, and then I did the second half of the next year. But it just takes time. But by putting that down, and I tried to put it a little loose with some holes in case somebody needed to crawl out. But I replaced the mulch in some areas, but like it's slowly a process. But now some of them are getting rooted. I'm happy to help you and show you.
Yeah, like doing like right now a site preparation you can do if you say you want to turn like a piece of lawn or something, and you don't have a tiller, you don't want to turn the soil up, and it's just grass. Literally putting down cardboard and then putting mulch, putting wood chips on top of that. Make sure the cardboard, as you're putting it out there, maybe you went to Aldi's and got a bunch of boxes or something, or you stopped at the refrigerator delivery truck, okay, and you got some big boxes there. Like anywhere there's a hole in there, just remember stuff will pop up through there. But take those, put them down, cover it with mulch over the course of the winter. The cardboard basically disintegrates. And now you've got a nice bed that you can like dig a hole in, stick your plants in. It's a great way to do a lot of that weed control. Then in the spring we had far less grass that we had to worry about. Oh, how are we going to, deal with this? So it's a good. Leave the leaves.
I leave all the
Why would you rake leaves? That's awful. It's so like I hate it. Now, if you're MWRD and you're a wastewater treatment plant, you are concerned about leaves being in the street because of the phosphorus that they give off as they sort of start to decompose, okay? That's a problem. If they're in your yard, though, we have earthworms. Do you know what worms do? They turn leaves into soil. Where I lived, before I lived in Chicago, we had lots of oak trees in our yard, and between the wind blowing stuff around, and then there would be a bit of snow, and then spring came along and like, where'd our leaves go? And then when I moved out of there, my father-in-law moved in there, and he has always thought that he has to rake his leaves. And so he raked all of his leaves, and he's like, oh, now it's killing all the grass. I'm like, well, why'd you rake them? If you would have just left them dispersed and maybe ran over it with your mower and just let them be, when you come out with a blower and start blowing out that's your soil. That's it's called the A horizon of your soil that you're basically blowing away when you're raking all that stuff away. You need those nutrients.
And we like lichens in the winter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wonderful insects that crawl
Yeah.
through those leaves that need those.
Yeah, there are a lot of moths and even some butterflies in certain habitats that need that. In our prairie, what we will do here, we won't cut anything out, we won't rake any leaves out of it. When spring comes along, though, what we will do, since we can't do a prescribed burn, I don't know, it's something about it being close to the building. What we will do is we will cut off the top and we will remove like the top layers of stuff. That's kind of how we, expose stuff, yeah.
And how do we move away from manicured lawns?
You just have to be willing to piss off your neighbors. No, I'm sorry. What I do.
About a parkway, on the side of a public.
So first off, make it look purposeful. Okay, I had a slide in here of there were bricks surrounding the thing. Okay, I also have a sign that says this is a conservation at home. There are, if you were to look up through the Cook County Forest Preserve, I believe they will certify something as a conservation at home site or as like a butterfly way station. Okay, if you were to search some of those, you can find and you can enroll a spot and you can get a sign. And well, I would like to do something different here, but there's a sign, so I guess we have to keep it as native. And that's actually worked really well to let people know what you're doing. Also, that's a good reason for one, maybe starting small instead of doing the whole thing at once, or two, to definitely start with like plugs of plants so that, and you get some things that are going to bloom early in the season. So folks are like, oh, this is what it is. We have some plants that have just, I don't know if they're still blooming, the New England asters, or the purple ones. They're still blooming right now. Like they're waiting all year. They get to be this tall before it blooms. And people are like, oh, all these weeds. Whoa, just wait. Just be patient. It's going to bloom. So is that?
You might start a trend.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And that's because that's what I did on my parkway, which is down Grace. And there are a lot more people in this area that do this than you think. I was so surprised when I moved to Chicago 11 years ago and I saw so many native plants. Like it was kind of here and kind of there that I'm like, hey, I think we can make this work.
We're
So
going to get seeds ready
Yep.
in the winter, right? So
Yep.
we're going to prepare, so they have to live through cold. So we have a lot of seeds we're going to put in the refrigerator so it will simulate the idea of being outside. And then once we have some of those seeds started, we can let you guys get some of those plants in the spring. That you can probably.
Yep.
What about, sorry.
How do you that though? You are seeing some of those, native gardens that are popping up in the park. I was talking about the turf, which is also sprouting everywhere. The turf bombs, all of that.
Say that one more time. I missed part of your question.
Well, how do you combat that there are a lot of people who install turf lawns?
Yeah. Oh, you mean like turf as in like not grass, but actually like astroturf? I mean,
even
we can.
in the parkways, I see.
Yeah. Part of me is like, well, I can only control what I can control. And what I've found is that people will often do something like that because, well, nothing seems to grow here. Like they'll try to put grass seed and they're putting it under a Norway maple. One, never plant Norway maples. You know why? They're not from here. They're from Norway, right. A Crimson King, that's a Norway maple. Don't plant those here, okay? But they make such thick canopy that nothing can grow. The grass will start to just get a little bit of green to it, and then as the canopy grows out, it shades out one then game of tag and it's gone. So what I've done is planted shade-tolerant species. There are things that grow in woodlands that grow in shade that'll do just fine in a spot like that, and then try to keep the game of tag on the neighbor with the turf for a little while. So it's a slow and a patient process. Even starting with the garden at Bell, I had this idea and approached our assistant principal, Ms. Miller, about it. Like when my older son was in second grade, and we didn't actually install it until I think he was in seventh grade. Because we had to kind of wait and be patient for the time to be right, for the funding was there. Ms. Perlmutter had another opportunity, and like all of these things came together, and we had another parent that helped with this work on the grant, and magic happened. But yeah, so doing bits, making it easy for someone. That's what I always say is like, make it easy, make it seem like it's their idea. That's so much.
Like the field of dreams, you know?
Yeah.
They build, you make it, and they'll come. When
Yeah.
you plant, no matter what you plant, seriously, all the pollinators will show up.
Yep.
They just find you.
What about a clover mix rather than grass?
Excellent. You know, that it was honestly like the white clover that people like hate having clover in their lawn. Like, that was my saving grace, having that. The rabbit, it got its corner where I didn't pull out that as weeds, okay? And it stayed over there. And then we were good, and then I had my other part over here.
What about for people's backyards? Like planting rather than grass if they want it?
Yeah, it's up until modern herbicides, it was always grass was a mix of clovers and sedges and fescues. And now those herbicide, the weed and feed, kills the sedges, kills anything that's broadleaf, kills the clover. So you're left with just fescue, which is not helping much. Yes, I'm sorry, you're being patient. Thank you.
What if you like grow a plant from seed and you don't predict it and then it starts like tangling up and like killing other plants? What do you do?
Well, first off, you have to know what kind of, the question was, what do you do if you grow a plant from a seed and it gets big and it starts getting tangled and like attacking other plants? What do you do? Well, first off, it's really important to know what you're planting. Okay, so if you're going to plant a seed, you should know, especially with the kind of gardens that I do, is this a native seed? Is it from here? Okay, is this seed that I bought from a garden store and they said, oh, this is a great plant, you know, it looks really pretty. I'm like, well, maybe it's pretty, you know, in Europe. So, because those things can escape. Have you guys heard of buckthorn? I know some of you heard of buckthorn. We made mallets out of it at buckthorn. It's it's an invasive shrub. If you go to Clark Park over by the Chicago River and all the shrubs that are along the edges of it, you like to get down by the river, but it like pokes you and it's got these black berries on it. Buckthorn, it's invasive. It was introduced because someone's like, oh, it has pretty white flowers in the spring and it's got nice, you know what? We even had a buckthorn that had big old logs in it growing next to our school. And because it had just been pruned up and cleaned up around in Miss Perlmutter's front yard when I was working over there, I'm like, why? I found all these little baby buckthorn seeds in her seedlings in her garden. I'm like, where are these coming from? This is so weird. And I'm looking around and I'm like, oh, the bush, the pretty bush that's right next to her porch, it was a buckthorn. It probably started growing in the weeds, and there it was kept. So. Knowing what your plants are, it's really important. Buckthorn's awful. Honeysuckle is also awful. There's a native honeysuckle, but it's a vine. So if it's not a vine, then it's not a honeysuckle that you want, unless it's a Derivilia, which is another story. I'm getting into technical right now. Sorry. Thoughts, questions? Anything else? Yeah, if you're able to come hang out and do stuff with Earth Guardians when we know we're doing stuff, often Miss Perlmutter I know lets the group know, hey, we're going to be outside, you know, digging. Eric's going to be here. Feel free to come by, and I gladly, you know, throw out whatever information I can. I live just down the street, even though my kids have both graduated from here. I still love the neighborhood and the community because it's where I live. So
that's a beautiful thing.
One thing before we leave that I want to thank our guests is that Ms. Whiting and I are looking for some adult, brave people, souls, even if you're, you're in the 8th grade, to help us roll out the compost and to help be on our sustainability committee. We're trying to flip everything in the lunchroom to be sustainable. So sometimes we need somebody to look up the cheapest way to buy thousands and thousands of pastry papers or muffin cups, a variety of things. So we got approval to buy new silverware. We're just trying to make it as sustainable as possible because these kids want it that way and they should have it that way. So yeah, if you want to email me, I'd be happy to get you on the adult sustainability committee. And I'd like to thank Daniel and Eric for coming and helping us learn so much. Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, no, go, so one last thing. So one of the questions earlier that you answered so well is when we were talking about the AstroTurf, or we were talking about trying to get other folks to adopt planting native plants, right, to get ditching the lawn. is the realm of possibility. When you yourself do something, all of a sudden folks are like, huh, did you see what the Kropotniks did? That was really interesting, right? Some person might go by like, oh my God, should have never given these people money, right? No, but in all seriousness though, it all of a sudden makes it an option. It's one of the reasons why, so for example, myself and Day, we actually, one of the places that we visited and tried to spread this through social media was with someone who was an award-winning gardener where they had taken the lawn and transformed it. Her name was Yvonne. She got national recognition from Cook County for it. And, for example, we filmed a clip where she talked about, people think that this is time intensive. She's like, no. It was time intensive when I had a big lawn. I had to lawn it, I had to mow it every week, empty it. Now, she's like, there's regular TLC that she has to do, but this is something which is a lot less time intensive. And so spreading the word, making yourself an example as a symbol, all of these things that make it the realm of possibility for more people. A friend of mine in Skokie, he was actually, he got nominated for an Oscar, but he lives in Skokie, Illinois. And what he did is that he himself decided, I'm going to tear up my lawn, put native plants. He's like, the majority of the people that are in his vicinity have now done the same. And so, shameless plug, if you want to see that video that I mentioned, Commish H2O, like water. You can see that video and many others. And in the future, this will also be on there where we'll be talking about it. Absolutely. So thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
One more piece for that, the therapy that she got from planting a garden.
Yes.
Very important. So.
Absolutely.
I water my lawn 5 times this summer. With the stuff that Aaron put in, maybe 5 times. And we tried to plan it for when it was going to rain, but really